Kenzie, I forgot to take a reading tonight and take a dress up tomorrow. Hello, everybody. Good night, family. Good night, friends. Good night, everybody. How everybody doing? How is everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's having a great evening. Welcome back, guys. We are back on the live. We were on earlier, chatting, having fun. Now we are back on the live. We are going to be reading the book The Guardian, which we have been reading for the last 2 weeks. Yes, and we are hoping to finish the reading of the book sometime this month. I doubt we're going to be finishing it this month because we are on chapter 28 and we have a few more to go. So I'm going to say by the weekend. I'm going to put it at the weekend. So we should be finished reading it the weekend. If I was reading it by myself, I'll be done already. But anyway, we are going to be reading it nonetheless. Angie's here. Angie, what's up? And so too is AP, the sweet candy cupcake girl. How you doing? I am doing, love. I'm doing good. I was going to do a dress up, but I'm busy trying to sort some things out here. So cause me I get help with this tick shop thing. I may have to take it. I may have to take the help. So I can't do the dressing up tonight. Yeah? But we can see wherever Kenzie is. Kenzie may do the dressing up for you. Just for you tomorrow. Just pray so I have enough time. But tomorrow, yeah, I'm going to do the dressing up tomorrow. But first things first and important things important, yeah? All things important. But some things, you have to prioritize a little bit, yeah? So Kenzie, here I am. I'm going to read for y'all. I want to know what happened after Mike got arrested. Mike gets arrested. Mike goes to jail. I wonder if something is going to happen to Julie. Because even now, we are not even sure that the person who is prank calling Julie, we're not even sure if it's Richard. You know how these novels always take a twist and a turn. They always lead us to believe it's one person and then it be somebody else. So I'm not even sure Richard is the person who was prank calling Julie and doing all these things. But we're going to continue the reading and see if there are any revelations in that regard. All right, so come on with me, guys. Come on with me and let us continue with this reading of the book The Guardian, written by Nicholas Sparks. Let us begin. We are on chapter 28, actually. They took him to jail? Mabel asked in disbelief. It was Monday morning. And because Mabel had been visiting her brother in Atlanta, she hadn't heard anything until she had walked in that morning. For the past 10 minutes, Julie had filled Mabel in on everything that had happened. Andrea was busy mangling a gentleman's hair as she strained to listen in. She hadn't smiled since Jake had started talking. She hadn't smiled since Julie had started talking, and the more she heard, the more she wanted to tell Julie that she didn't know what she was talking about. Richard wasn't dangerous. Mike attacked him. Besides, Richard wasn't even interested in Julie anymore. Richard, she felt sure, had finally seen the light. And talk about romantic. He had taken her to the beach and they had talked for hours. And he hadn't even made a pass at her. No guy had ever treated her with that kind of respect. And he was sweet, too. He had asked her not to tell Julie because he didn't want to hurt her feelings. Did that sound like a stalker? Of course not. Even though he had refused her offer to come inside when he had finally dropped her off at her house, she had been glowing since she woke up yesterday morning. Julie shrugged. Her face was drawn and pale. Pete Gandy questioned him for an hour, and he was there until Henry bailed him out. Mabel looked baffled. Pete Gandy? What was he thinking? Didn't he listen to what Mike was saying? Not that I could tell. He kept trying to write this off as some sort of jealous spat. Kept wanting to know the real reason he had attacked Richard. Did you tell him what's been going on? Well, I tried, but he didn't think it was relevant. Not to the assault charge. Mabel tossed her purse onto the magazine covered table. He's an idiot, an absolute idiot. But he's always been an idiot. How he opened up on the fo- How he ended up on the force, I don't even know. That may be true, but it doesn't help Mike. It doesn't help me either, for that matter. So what's next for Mike? Is he going to be charged? I have no idea. We'll find out today, I guess. He has an appointment with Steve Sides later. Steve Sides was a local defense attorney. Mabel had known his family for years. That's a smart choice. Have you ever met him? No, but Henry has. Hopefully, he'd be able to work out something with the prosecutor. So what are you going to do? About Richard? I'm changing my phone number today. That's it? I don't know what else I can do. Pete wouldn't listen to me either, other than to say that if it kept happening, I should report it. Did he call again on Sunday? No, thank God. And you didn't see him? No. Across the salon, Andrea frowned, thinking that's because he was still thinking about me. Now quit bad mouthing him. So you think he set that whole thing up, don't you? I think he's been setting everything up, including Saturday night, including me. I think he considers this whole thing a game. Mabel met her eyes. It's not a game, Julie. It took a while for Julie to respond. I know, she says. Fly Girl is in the house. Fly Girl, what's up? How are you feeling, Sugar Bun? How are you feeling, my love? Grant, what's going on with you on this Sunday night here? How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. I like seeing when you come in at the reading, because me know say a lot of times when you don't take up a book, when you don't read, and not everybody like reading. Not everybody. People think it's boring, and because you're just there by yourself, just calling words in a book, people oftentimes don't understand why I like to read these novels and stuff like that. But it's really fun, and it opens your eyes to your mind, to a brand new world, world of thought and processing other people's existence and stuff. I love it. I love it, and I thank you all for coming in. So, what was he like? Henry asked during the interview. They were seated in Henry's office, and the door closed behind them. Mike exhaled in disgust. It's hard to explain. What do you mean? It's like he already had an idea in his head as to how it all came about, and nothing I said could change his mind. He didn't care about the phone calls or the fact he was watching you guys earlier. No, he said it sounded like she was blowing it out of proportion. People shop, he said. They get haircuts. It's no big deal. And how was the other cop? The lady? Pete wouldn't let her say a word. So I had no idea. Henry reached for his coffee and took a sip. Well, you really did it this time, he said. Not that I blame you. I would have done the same darn thing. So what do you think will happen now? Well, I don't think you'll end up in jail if that's what you are talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Henry looked at him. You mean with Richard? Mike nodded. Henry put the cup of coffee back on the desk. I wish I could tell you, little brother, but I can't. Officer Jennifer had just about had her fill of Officer Pete, and they had been working together for only an hour that morning. She had to come in early to finish up the reports from Sunday that Officer Pete hadn't quite gotten around to, because, as he said, I'm too busy trying to protect the street to be tied down at a desk by a whole my whole shift writing reports. And besides, I'd help you learn the ropes. In the 2 weeks she had been working with him, she hadn't learned anything about the job, other than the fact that Pete no more than happy to slouch over the busy work so he could have more time to devote to curling weights in front of the mirror. The man, she decided, was an absolute moron when it came to interviewing people. The other night was a prime example. She didn't need to be Nobel Prize winner to see that Mike and Julie were scared, and not because Mike was being hauled off for questioning in the middle of the night. No, they were scared of Richard Franklin. And if what they were saying was true, Jennifer figured they had every right to be. Pete Gandy might have the instincts of a wooden post, but Jennifer's were well hound, in spite of the fact that she had just finished her training. But then she had grown up hearing about this kind of stuff. Jennifer came from a long line of cops. Her father was a cop, her grandfather was a cop, and both brothers were cops, though all were still living in New York. How she had ended up in the coastal town in a coastal town in South Carolina, how she had ended up in a coastal town in North Carolina was a long story involving college, an ex-boyfriend, the need to make her own mark in the world, and the desire to see another part of the country. It all sort of collided about 6 months earlier, when she had applied for the police academy on a whim and surprised herself by actually being accepted for a job opening in Swansboro. Her father, though proud she was joining up with the good guys, was aghast that she was doing it in North Carolina. They all chew tobacco and eat grits and call every woman darling. How is a nice Italian girl like you going to fit in there? Only, only she had fit in, oddly enough. It was much better than she had expected so far, especially the people, who, get this, were so friendly that they waved to strangers while driving. Everyone was great, in fact, except for Pete Gandy. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see him flexing his arm again, making his muscle bulge, and whenever he passed another car, he nodded to the other driver as if saying, "Keep the speed down, buddy." So what did you think of Mike Harris's story the other night? Jennifer finally asked. Since he was caught up in his nodding, it took a moment for Pete to realize she was speaking. Oh, well, he was just making excuses, you see. If I've seen it once, I've seen it 100 times. Everybody who is charged blames the other guy. No criminal is ever guilty. And if he is, hold on, my pages can't pull apart. And if he is, there's a very good and reasonable explanation. Once you've been through the ropes, you'll get used to that pretty quick. But didn't you say you knew him and that he always seemed like a laid-back guy? Doesn't matter. The law is the law. Same for everybody. She knew he was trying to sound wise and worldly and above all fair. But in the 2 weeks she had been partnered with Pete, none of those adjectives seemed to apply. Wise and worldly? The man considered professional wrestling a real sport, and fairness doesn't even seem to be in the man's vocabulary. One of his jaywalking tickets had gone to a lady hobbling across the street in a walker. For heaven's sake. And the other night, when he had opened his mouth to ask Mike Harris a question, Pete had waved her off, commenting that the little lady is still learning the ropes about interrogation. Don't mind her. Had they been anywhere but the station, she would have put him in his place for that one. She had almost done it anyway. Little lady? Once she was out of training, She vowed she'd make Pete Gandhi pay for it. Somehow, some way, he'd pay. God, what's up? God say. Then chew tobacco and eat grits. Yeah, her father is a mess. He said that's all they do in North Carolina is chew tobacco and eat grits and call everybody darling. Anyway, since she was still technically in training, albeit the last stages, what could she do but seethe? Besides, that wasn't the point. Mike Harris and Richard Franklin were what this was all about, and Julie Barronson, of course. Because of what Mike and Julie had said, and they too smooth to be anything but squirrely, where Richard had acted when they had talked to him, she hadn't slept well after getting off her shift. Richard, she had a feeling, was not the innocent victim in this, and neither Julie nor Mike struck her as liars. We know that we have read before that Richard is a sneaky little, I would say maybe a sociopath. Remember how he said how he used the guidance counselor? Remember how he said he had cut himself and blamed the other guys? And I believe, based on what I have read, that he was responsible for his father's death. I don't trust Richard at all. But let's continue. Don't you think we should at least look into it though? What if they were telling the truth? Pete sighed as if the topic bored him. Then they should have come down to the station to file a report. But they didn't. And they admitted they had no evidence. She didn't even know for sure that it was Franklin who was calling. So what does that tell you? But nothing. It tells you that they were probably making it up. Look, it was a good color, and we have got him dead to rights. Jennifer tried again. But what about her, Julie Barronson? She looked scared, don't you think? Of course she was scared. Her little honey was just locked up. You'll probably be scared too. Anyone would be. In New York, the police... Pete Gandhi raised his hand. No more New York stories, okay? Things are different down here. Blood runs a little hot in these parts. Once you learn the ropes, you'll realize that nearly every altercation has something to do with a feud or vendetta of some sort. And the law doesn't much like to get involved with those unless they cross the line, like this one. Besides, before you come in the morning, I was talking to the chief, and he said that he had had a call from the lawyer and that he tried to make out something. So I think for the most part, this is pretty much over, at least where we are concerned, unless it goes to court. Winsome, what's up? Winsome is still up on my vacation. My vacation ends today. How you doing? Jennifer looked at him. What are you talking about? Pete shrugged. That's all he said. Another thing she couldn't stand about Officer Gandhi was the fact that he kept information from her about the cases they worked on together. Pete Gandhi liked to be in control of things, and this was his little way of letting her know that he was in charge. When Jennifer didn't say anything, Pete went back to his nodding routine again. Jennifer shook her head. That imbecile. In the silence, her thoughts returned to Mike and Julie, and she wondered if maybe she should talk to them again, preferably when Pete wasn't around. Oh yeah, you did go work this morning, right? Did you say I got work 10 o'clock or 10:30? Okay. Your 8-hour shift done, Sister Winsome. Okay, welcome guys. We are here. We are trying to finish reading this book called The Guardian. We're going to read a couple of chapters tonight before we end the day. Henry was standing beside Mike in the office, leaning in on the phone conversation to his lawyer. You have got to be kidding me, was followed by, "You're not serious, and I can't believe this." Mike paced the small office, his heavy strides punctuated by looks of disbelief, and he kept repeating those statements. At last, his jaw setting, he began answering in monosyllables, then finally hung up the phone. He neither moved nor said a word to Henry. Instead, he stared at the phone, skimming his tongue over his teeth. "What was all that about?" Henry asked. To Henry, it looked as if his question rolled through a complex rolled through a complex filter, translated from English into something else, then back again. His face had taken on the form bad to worse look. "He says he just heard from Richard Franklin's attorney," he said, "and—" Mike couldn't look at Henry. He was angled towards the door. Though his eyes didn't seem to be focused, he said, "They intend to file a temporary restraining order against me until the case gets sorted out. He says that Richard Franklin considers me a menace." "You?" "He also says they intend to find a civil suit against me." "You've got to be kidding." "That's what I said. But according to the other lawyer, Richard is still dizzy from the other night. Supposedly, he thought he was okay and was able to make it home Saturday night. But by Sunday morning, his vision was blurry, and he was so dizzy that he had to call a cab to bring him to the hospital. His lawyer is claiming that I gave him a concussion." Henry rolled back slightly. "Did you tell them that Richard is lying? I mean, nothing against you, and I'm sure it was a good shot, but come on, a concussion? You see how him wicked? Oh, him say him have a concussion, but he was out with Andrea. You know, I think Andrea is setting him up to this. He is already wicked. But I think that Andrea is setting him up to this." We are going to continue reading and see if we find out the truth. Mike shrugged, still trying to process everything, wondering how this had suddenly spun out of control. 2 days ago, he had just wanted Richard to stop bothering Julie. 3 days ago, he hadn't been thinking about the guy, period. And now, he was considered a criminal because he had done what he was supposed to do. Officer Pete Gandy, he decided, was definitely off the Christmas party list. Not that he had a Christmas party, but if he ever did, Pete Gandy wasn't going to be invited. Had he listened, had he even tried to understand Mike's reasoning, none of this would have happened now. Mike stood from the chair. "I've got to talk to Julie," he announced, slamming the door on his way out. By the time he reached the salon, Julie needed only a glance to surmise that Mike was just about as upset as she had ever seen him. "It's ridiculous," he repeated. "I mean, what good are the police if they won't do anything about him? I'm not the damn problem here. He is." "I know," Julie said soothingly. "Don't they know I wouldn't make up the stuff I tried to tell them? Don't they know I wouldn't have come after him unless he deserved it? What the hell good is keeping on the right side of the law if they are not going to believe anything you say? Now, I'm the one who has to go to defend myself. I'm the one who is out on bail. I'm the one who has to hire a lawyer. What does that say about the criminal justice system? This guy can do whatever he wants, but I can't do a damn thing." Julie didn't answer right away, nor did Mike seem to need a response. Finally, she reached for his hand and tugged on it until he relented. "You are right. It doesn't make any sense," she says, "and I'm so sorry." Though her touch seemed to calm him, Mike couldn't meet her eyes. I am too, he said. Why are you sorry? Because I screwed things up with the police. That's what I'm really worried about. I I can handle whatever happens to me. But what about you? Because of me, the police don't believe your story. And what if they don't believe me or you in the future either? Julie didn't want to think about that anymore. She had been thinking about it all morning. The whole thing had worked out just the way Richard wanted. She was more certain than ever that he had planned it all. What me tell you no say? Me tell you no, that is how the narcissist behave. The narcissist is a setter-upper. The narcissist sets up situations so that they can can you. They can get you in a spot. I mean, narcissism is one of the worst traits a person could ever have, and one of the worst set of people you could ever have to deal with. So anything he says on the dates cannot be taken seriously since he's under the influence of a concussion. Really gotta tell that to Andrea, because Andrea thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. So let's see. Let us continue. It just doesn't seem fair, Mike said. Did the lawyer say anything else? Julie shrugged. Just the usual stuff, that there's no reason to worry just yet. Mike let go of Julie and took a deep breath. Yeah, it came out sounding tired, defeated, and Julie looked up at him. You still coming over to my place tonight? If you want me to. If you are not too mad at me. I'm not mad at you, darling, but I would be if you didn't come. I really don't want to be alone tonight. All right, let's continue. Oh, okay. Winsome says she is going to church tonight. Reverend Winsome, you go to church. Okay. All right. Stevenside's office was located near the courthouse. Once inside, Mike was led to a paneled room dominated by a large rectangular table and shelves filled with law books. He took a seat as the attorney pushed open the door. Stephen Sides was 50, with a round face and black hair that was turning grey at the temples. His suit was expensive, one of those silk numbers imported from Italy, but it looked rumpled, as if he hadn't hung it up after wearing it last. There was a puffiness to his skin, and the tip of his nose that suggested the habit of a few too many after our cocktails. But there was a steadiness in his demeanor that gave Mike confidence. Sides spoke slowly, carefully, with every word measured for effect. He let Mike rant for a few minutes before guiding him into the story with a series of questions. It didn't take long for Mike to tell him everything. When he was finished, Stephen Sides set his pencil on his legal pad and leaned back. Like I said on the phone, I wouldn't worry about the altercation on Saturday night right now. For one thing, I'm not sure the district attorney is going to push for prosecution for various reasons. He began to tick them off one by one. Your clean record, your good standing in the community, and the fact that he's well aware that you'd be able to bring in dozens of character witnesses make it unlikely that he'd find a jury who would convict you. And once I tell him what led you to this point makes prosecution that much more doubtful, even if there is no proof of the stalking. It could still play well to a jury, and he knows it. But what about the civil case? That's a different matter. But it's not something that would happen right away, if it happens at all. If the district attorney doesn't prosecute, that won't be good for Franklin's case. If the district attorney prosecutes and loses the case, that won't look good either. In all likelihood, they won't go to court unless he wins at trial. And like I said, I just don't see that happening. You thought Julie was in trouble and you reacted, for better or worse. Most people would find that perfectly reasonable. And the restraining order is just for show. I'll assume you have no problem staying away from Richard Franklin. Not at all. I never wanted to be around the guy in the first place. Good. But let me handle the prosecutor, okay? And don't go talking to the police again. Just refer them to me and I'll handle it. Mike nodded. So you really don't think I should worry about this? Not yet, anyway. Let me talk to a few people and I'll let you know where we are in a couple of days. If you are going to worry about anything, worry about Richard Franklin. Sides leaned forward, his face serious. What I'm going to tell you is just for you, okay? And I'm only doing this because you seem like a decent guy. If you say that I'm the one who told you what I'm about to say, I'll deny it. After a moment, Mike nodded. The lawyer waited, making sure he had Mike's complete attention. There's one thing you should understand about the police. The police are great when there's a burglary or a murder. That's what the system was set up for, to catch people after the fact. Even with the stalking laws on the book, there's still nothing that the police can really do if someone targets you. And he's been careful not to leave evidence that gets him locked up first. If a person is hell-bent on doing you harm and he doesn't care about the possible consequences, then you're pretty much on your own. You'll be the one who has to deal with this. So you think Richard Franklin might want to hurt Julie? That's not the right question to ask. The right question is, do you believe that? If you do, you'll have to be ready to deal with it. Because if it gets worse from here, no one's going to be able to help you. Ain't that the truth? Who does that sound like, Trev? Don't talk to the police. I will handle it. Who did say that? Who did say that, God? Me forget. Who did say it? Who did say don't talk to the police? I will handle it. Come talk to me now. Me know who did not. Exactly. People. Exactly. When old master went up the car and I tried to send me to prison. Old master. When old master. Lord Jesus, help me soul. When old master went up the car and I tried to send me to prison. To the car, old master say, old master come in nice and sweet as a trip. When anybody call about the car, you know what you answer? Don't answer no question. But no care. Anybody ask you anything, send them to me. I mean like a damn big old fool, don't you? Jesus, people wicked. I mean like a big fool. You're a fool to what you don't know. I mean how to say it. I don't know. You gotta talk to my husband. I don't know. You gotta talk to my husband. That time poor me they know, so I mean they tell them say talk to me. The husband they tell them say. I try to evade. I try me, they try to be evasive. Me no want to talk about the car for a me bunny up. Poor me, they don't have a clue, mighty God. Mighty God of Nazareth. Joseph, what's up? I tell you, my God. Let us continue with this reading here. Beloved, me and my body. Let us continue. The conversation left Mike feeling off kilter. Sides was obviously a smart guy, and though Mike was feeling better after his legal prospects, he was feeling better about his legal prospects. His relief was offset by Sides' warning. Was it over with Richard now? Mike paused outside his truck and thought about it. He pictured Richard's face in the bar again. He saw the smirk, and with that, the answer came to him. He better go get him a pew pew. This wasn't going to stop. He knew Richard was just getting started. And as he crawled into the truck, he heard Sides' voice again. No one's going to be able to help you. I cheat him, did I cheat upon me, eh? Upon me or upon you? Which one? That evening, Mike and Julie did their best to have as normal a night as possible. They grabbed a pizza on the way home, then watched a movie, but neither bothered to hide the fact that whenever a car drove up the street, they both stiffened until it had passed. They kept the curtains drawn and kept Singer inside. Even Singer picked up on their nervousness. Pacing the house as if on patrol, he neither barked nor growled. When he closed his eyes to doze, he did so with one ear cocked forward. The only thing unusual about the night was that it seemed too quiet. Because Julie's phone had been switched to an unlisted number, it hadn't rung. She had decided to give the number to only a few selected people. And she had told Mabel not to offer it to clients. If Richard can't call, she thought, maybe he'll get the message. Julie shifted on the couch. Maybe. After dinner, she had asked Mike about his meeting with the lawyer, and Mike had told her what Sides had said, namely that he didn't think Mike had all that much to worry about. But to Julie's vigilant eye, Mike's demeanor suggested that Sides had said a good deal more than that. Across town, this Richard is something else, people. Across town, Richard stood above the tray of chemicals in his dark room, his face glowing red, watching as the image on the photograph paper slowly took form. The process still struck him as mysterious ghosts and shadows darkening, becoming real, becoming Julie. His eyes shimmered back at him in a shallow pan, shimmered all around him. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm sorry. Who will tell you that I'm cheating on you, Card? I don't need my head to get boss. We are cheat on or with you. Cheat on me with Card, or cheat on Card with me. Whether not cheat with me, come in a see you. Where did they? Eh? Let me smell your ear. Let me smell your color. Let me look if any lipstick there on you. Let me smell if you just take a shower. Let me check your wallet. Let me smell your hand. God, those are some crazy things that people do. But let us continue reading. Across town, Richard stood above the tray of chemicals in his darkened room. His face glowing red, watching as the image on the photographic paper slowly took form. The process still struck him as mysterious. Ghosts and shadows, darkening, becoming real. becoming Julie. Her eyes shimmered back at him in the shallow pan, shimmered all around him. Always he returned to the photography, the single constant in his life, staring at the beauty of reflected light and shadows on the images brought a sense of purpose, reminding him that he controlled his own destiny. I mean, me can look, me want me not go find nothing. All right. He was still exhilarated from the other night. Julie's imagination was running wild, no doubt. Even now, she was probably wondering where he was, what he was thinking, what he would do next, as if he were some kind of monster, the boogeyman of childhood nightmares. He wanted to laugh. How could such a terrible thing make him feel so good? And Mike, changing in like the cavalry at the bar, so utterly predictable, he had almost wanted to laugh then, too. No challenge with that one, Julie thought. So emotional, so brave, so alive. Studying the photograph in front of him, he again took note of the similarities between Julie and Jessica. Same eyes, same hair, same air of innocence. From the moment he had walked into the salon, he had thought they could be sisters. Richard shook his head, feeling the memory of Jessica pull at him. They had rented a house in Bermuda for their honeymoon, not far from large resorts. It was quiet and romantic, with ceiling fans and white wicker furniture and a porch that faced the ocean. There was a private beach where they could spend hours in the sun alone, just the two of them. Oh, how he had been looking forward to that. He had taken dozens of photographs of her during the first couple of days. He loved her skin. It was soft and unlined, burnished in its coat of oil. By the third day, her skin had darkened to bronze, and in her white cotton dress she was dazzling. That night he had wanted nothing more than to take her in his arms and slowly peel the dress from her body and make love to her beneath the sky. But she had wanted to go dancing at the resort. No, he had said. No, let's stay here. It's our honeymoon. Please, she had said. For me, will you do this just for me, please? They went, and it was loud and filled with drunks, and Jessica was loud and kept on drinking. Her words began to slur, and later she swayed as she made her way to the restroom. She bumped into a young man and nearly spilled his drink. The young man touched her arm and laughed. Jessica laughed at him. Richard seethed as he watched it happen. It embarrassed him. It angered him. But he would forgive her, he told himself. She was young and immature. He would forgive her because he was such a good husband and he loved her. But she would have to promise not to do it again. I wonder if is Jessica still alive? God, you are crazy. Joseph, can't say when you come home you smell like coconut. Oh my God, you're a mess. All right, let us continue. Oh my gosh. But she would have to promise not to do it again. But that evening, when they were back at the house, he tried to talk to her, and she wouldn't listen. He was there. Oh my God. I was just having fun, she says. You could have tried to have fun too. How could I, with my new wife flirting with strangers? I wasn't flirting. I saw you. Stop acting crazy. What did you say to me? What did you say? Oh, let me go. You are hurting me. What did you say? Oh, please. Oh, what did you say? In the end, she had disappointed him, Richard thought, and Julie had disappointed him too. The grocery store, the salon, the way she had hung upon him. He was beginning to lose faith, but she had redeemed herself at the bar. She hadn't been able to ignore him. She hadn't been able to simply walk away. No, he thought, she had had to talk to him. And though her words were spiteful, he knew what she was really feeling. Yes, he knew. She cared for him. For weren't anger and love opposite sides of the same coin? Great anger wasn't possible without great love, and she had been so angry. The thought made him sore. Richard left the dark room and made his way to the bedroom. On the bed, amid the clutter of the cameras and lenses, he reached for the cell phone. His home phone, he knew, would leave a traceable record, but he had to hear her voice tonight, even if it was only on the machine. When he heard her voice, he could see the two of them at the theater again, tears in her eyes. He could hear her breath speed up as the phantom decided whether to let his lover leave him or whether both of them should die. He dialed the number, then closed his eyes in anticipation. But instead of Julie's familiar voice, there was a recording from the phone company. He ended the call and dialed again, more carefully this time, but got the same recorded message. Richard stared at the phone. Oh, Julie, he wondered. Why? 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 Chapter 29. After the tumult of the past month, the next week of Julie's life was startlingly quiet. She didn't see Richard anywhere during the week or on the following weekend. Monday had been equally uneventful, and she kept her fingers crossed that today would be no different. It seemed as if it would. Her phone was evidence to the fact that unlisted, unforwarded numbers were an effective way to stop unwanted calls. And though it was a welcome relief not to worry about it, she had begun thinking that she might as well bury the phone in the backyard, since it was obvious that no one was ever going to give her a ring just to shoot the breeze ever again for the rest of her life. I hope she don't give that number to Andrea, Lord have mercy. Only 4 people, Mabel, Mike, Henry, and Emma, knew the number, and since she spent all day with Mabel and all night with Mike, neither one of them had a reason to give her a ring. Henry had never called in all the years she had known him, which pretty much left Emma as the only person who might even consider calling. But after hearing how the calls had rattled Julie, Emma was apparently giving her a break, not wanting to be responsible for peeling Julie off the ceiling. Okay, she admitted, it wasn't so bad at first. It was kind of nice being able to cook or shower or thumb through a magazine or cuddle with Mike and know that she wouldn't be disturbed. But after a week, it got kind of irritating. Sure, she could call out and she did, but that wasn't the same. Because no one could call, it sort of began to feel as if she had been transported back to the pioneer days. Funny what a quiet week will do to a person's perspective. But it had been quiet. That was the thing. Really quiet. Normally quiet. Well, that wasn't normal. That was abnormally quiet, it should have said. But he said normally quiet. I think it should say abnormally quiet. She hadn't so much as seen anyone who might be Richard, even from a distance, and she was watching for him practically every minute. And so, of course, were Mike and Mabel and Henry. She had peeked out the windows of the salon in both directions a dozen times a day. When she was driving, She would sometimes turn suddenly onto a different road and stop, staring in the rearview mirror to see if anyone was following her. She scanned parking lots with a professional eye and faced the door when she stood in line at the post office or the supermarket. When she got home, Singer would head towards the woods and she would call him back so he could check out the house. She would wait outside, her hand on the container of pepper spray she had picked up at Walmart, while Singer scoured the rooms. But within minutes, Singer would come back, tail wagging and drool dripping, looking as happy as a kid at a birthday party. "What are you still doing on the porch?" he seemed to ask. "Don't you want to come in?" Even the dog noticed she was acting a little paranoid. But as the old cliche went, it's better safe than sorry. And then there was Mike. Mike hadn't so much as let her out of his sight for more than a few minutes, except when she was at work. Although having him around was great, there were moments when it got a little suffocating. Some things, she thought, were better done without Mike around. On the legal front, there was mixed activity. Officer Romanello had come by the week before and talked to both of them. She got their story and said not to hesitate to call her if anything out of the ordinary ever happened again. That made Julie feel better. Mike felt better for it too, but so far they hadn't had reason to call. On another front, the district attorney had declined to press charges, and though he held open the possibility that they might be reinstated at a later date, Mike was off the hook for this. Mike was off the hook for the time being. He had done this, he said, not because he felt Mike was justified, but because Richard hadn't shown up to give his formal statement. Nor had they been able to contact him. Strange, she thought, when she heard about it. But 8 days of nothing, absolutely nothing, had emboldened Julie. Not that she was dumb enough to forget the possible risk. I will never be one of those abused guests on morning talk shows that everyone in the audience considered an idiot for not seeing it coming, she told herself. But a subtle change had taken place without her particularly being aware of it. The week before, she had expected to see Richard. She had expected to see him lurking everywhere, and she had been prepared for it. What she'd do exactly depended on the circumstances, of course, but she had no qualms about screaming or running or setting Singer loose on the guy if she had to. "I'm ready for anything," she repeated to herself. "Just make your move. Any inkling of trouble and you'll be sorry, Mr. Franklin." But a thousand moments of looking and listening and not finding a trace of him had slowly nicked away at her resolve. Now, though she still felt a heightened sense of weariness, she had reached the point where she didn't expect to see him. So when Mike mentioned that Stephen Sides had left a message asking him to swing by for a brief meeting after work, Julie told him that she was tired and was going to head on home alone. "Just come on over when you are done," she said, "and if you are going to be late, give me a call, okay?" Mike bounded up. Mike bounded out of the Jeep. Not Mike, Singer. Singer bounded out of the Jeep as soon as she parked and circled the yard, moving farther and farther away from her, his nose to the ground. When she called for him, raising his head, he looked at her from across the yard. "Oh, come on," he seemed to be saying. "You haven't taken me for a walk in ages." Julie got out of the car. "No, we can't go now," she said. "Maybe later when Mike gets here." Singer stayed where he was. "I'm sorry, but I don't really want to head out there, you know." Even from a distance, she saw his ears droop. "Oh, come on." Julie crossed her arms and glanced around. She didn't see Richard's car, nor had she seen it when while she was driving. I wonder if something is going to happen to Julie. These books are filled with so much suspense. Unless he was planning to hike in a couple of miles, he wasn't here. The only car parked on her street bore the name of the realty company that was offering the lots for sale, along with the name of the lady who was selling them, Edna Farley. Edna was a regular at the shop. Though Mabel did her hair over the years, Julie had gotten to know her. Plump and middle-aged, she was nice in the way that all realtors were, cheerful and enthusiastic, with a tendency to leave her business cards around the salon, but also a little scatterbrained. When she was excited, which was practically all the time, she seemed to miss the obvious and was always one step behind in the conversation. While others had moved on to other subjects, Edna would Edna would continue to discuss the previous one. Occasionally Julie found it annoying, but she tolerated her in an "I'm glad it's Mabel and not me" kind of way. Singer's tail moved back and forth like a wave. Please. Julie didn't want to go, but she hadn't taken Singer for a walk in ages. She looked up the street again. Nothing. Would he walk a couple of miles on the off chance she had taken the dog for a walk? Stalkers will do that, Julie. They will. And they will wait for you as long as it takes, waiting for you to mess up. No, she decided, he wouldn't. Besides, Singer was with her, and Singer wasn't a chihuahua. All she had to do was yelp, and he would come charging like a samurai warrior on steroids. But she still didn't like it. The woods scared her now. There were too many places to hide, too many places to watch and be watched, too many opportunities for Richard to hide behind a tree and wait until she had passed, and then creep up behind her, twigs cracking beneath his weight. Julie felt panic clawing at her again, and she forced it away. Nothing was going to happen, she repeated. Not with Singer nearby, not with Edna pacing the lots, not without his car in the area. Richard wasn't there. So why not take the dog for a walk? Singer barked as if to get her attention. Well, okay, she finally said. But we can't stay long, okay? It looks like there might be a storm coming. Even before she finished speaking, Singer had turned and wandered into the woods, vanishing behind a clump of trees. It took 5 minutes before she realized she was whispering to herself. Nothing is going to happen, she was saying. It's perfectly safe out here. And it was, she thought. It had to be. But let's go over the reasons again, shall we? Because this just doesn't feel right for some reason. So she did, and again came up with the logical conclusion that Richard wasn't lurking nearby, but it still didn't help. She began to hyperventilate. So much for a relaxing walk in the woods. Julie crept along the trail, pushing at overgrown branches. The foliage had thickened since she had last been out there, or at least it seemed that way. In the past, she could see tendrils of light breaking through the cover, but because the sun was low and the clouds above were charcoal gray, the woods seemed unusually dark. That was stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. If they had her phone number, those morning talk shows would probably be calling her tomorrow. Why weren't you more careful? The host would ask. Because she would answer, dabbing at her eyes, I'm a twit. She stopped to listen. She heard nothing except the faraway chirping of a magpie. She turned from side to side, looked up and down the trail, and saw nothing unusual. Nothing. Of course it's safe, she whispered. Okay, girl, she thought, you got yourself into this, and let's stay calm here. I may not see Singer, but he's around. I'll just let Singer wander, and in a few minutes he'll head back home. And everything will be back to normal. Might take a glass of wine to restore order, but hey, I'm only human. And Singer loves this, after all. In the distance, she heard Singer bark, and her heart hammered in her chest with enough force to make her eyes go black at the corners. Alrighty then, she thought, changing her mind. I think that's a pretty clear message. Singer, come on, she shouted. Let's go back. Time to go. She waited and listened, but Singer didn't come. Instead, he barked again, but it wasn't an angry bark. It sounded like a bark of greeting, a friendly bark. Julie took a step in the direction of the sound and stopped. Don't go, she thought, until she recognized another sound. A voice. Someone was talking to Singer, and when she recognized it, she heaved a sigh of relief. It was Edna Farley. She walked quickly then, following the curving path until she could see the water of the intercoastal. Here the forest cleared, and she saw Edna patting Singer on the head. He was sitting on his haunches, his mouth open. When he heard Julie enter the clearing, he turned his head. This is the life, he seemed to be saying. A little walk, a little love. What could be better? Edna, too, had turned. Julie, she called out, I thought you might be heading this way. How are you? Julie started towards her. Hey, Edna, I'm fine. Just taking a little walk here. It's a nice day for it, or it was when we got out here. But now it looks like it might start to rain in a little while. By then, Julie had drawn nearer. We? She asked. Yeah, my client is looking over a couple of the far lots. They have been in the market for a while, but he seems pretty interested, so keep your fingers crossed for me. It was as she was speaking that Singer suddenly stood and moved to Julie's side. The hair on the back of his neck bristled. He started to growl. Julie felt her heart began to pound as she turned in the direction in which Singer was staring. Her eyes took a moment to adjust, and she drew a labored breath. In the background, she could hear Edna going on. Oh, here he is now, Edna was saying. Before Julie could move, before she could think to do anything other than stare, Richard was standing beside Edna. He wiped his brow and smiled at her, making Edna flush a little. You were right, Richard said. These lots were very nice too, but I think I like the ones on the other side a little better. Oh, yes, you are absolutely right, Edna said. And the view of the water on this side is priceless. They're not making any more waterfront, you know. It's a wonderful investment. She laughed, but neither one of them was listening to Edna now. Oh, where are your manners? I'd like you to meet my friend. OMG. Now he's trying to come live next to Julie. What in the world? OMG. Let me spin this page here. Hello, Julie, Richard said. What a nice surprise. Julie said nothing. It was all she could do to remain standing. Singer continued to growl, his lips curling up to reveal his teeth. Edna stopped in mid-sentence. Oh, you two know each other? She inquired. You could say that, Richard said. Isn't that right, Julie? Julie tried to steady herself. You bastard, she thought. How did you know I'd be here? How did you know? Hey, Julie, what's with Singer? Edna asked. Why is he acting so upset? Before she could answer, Richard glanced towards Edna. Edna, did you bring the information about the dimensions of the lot I'd asked for and the prices? I think I should take a look at the prospectus while I'm out here. At the word prices, Edna's eyes lit up. Of Of course I did. It's all in the car, she said. Let me go get it. I'll sure I'm sure you'll be pleased. They are very reasonably priced. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Take your time, he said, shrugging. I'm in no hurry. A moment later she was trotting towards the path, like a bowling pin about to fall. When she was gone, Richard turned his smile on Julie. You look wonderful, he said. Have missed you. How have you been? It was then that Julie realized with a sudden sinking urgency that they were alone, and the realization was enough to jolt her to her senses. She took a step backwards, thanking God in heaven that Singer was between them. What are you doing here, Richard? Richard shrugged, as if he had known she would ask. It's a great investment. I'm thinking that this might be a good place for me to put down some roots. A man needs a place to call home, huh? And this way we could be neighbors. Julie paled. He smiled. Would you like that, Julie? Me living right next door to you? No? That then maybe I just wanted to talk to you. You change your phone number. You won't go anywhere alone. What else could I do? She backed away another step. Singer stayed in place, as if daring Richard to approach her, his rear legs shaking as if ready to pounce. I don't want to talk to you, she said, hating her plaintive tone. Why can't you get that through your head? Don't you remember our dates? Richard said, his voice soft. He looked almost wistful, and the whole scene suddenly struck Julie as surreal. Our time together was special. Why don't you want to admit that? There is nothing to admit. She took another step away. Why are you acting this way? He sounded wounded, puzzled. Mike's not here now. It's just us. Julie's eyes darted sideways to the entrance of the path. Time to get out of here. If you make one move towards me or try to follow me, I'll scream, and this time I won't pull Singer back. He offered a gentle smile, as if patiently trying to explain something to a child. There's no reason to be scared, you know. You know I'll never hurt you. I love you. She blinked. He loves me. What the hell are you talking about? She finally said, the words coming out with such force than she had anticipated. I love you, he said again, and we can start over now. We'll go to the theater again. I know you like that. Or, if you don't want to do that, we can go anywhere you want. It doesn't matter. And we'll just chalk up this infatuation with Mike as a mistake, okay? I forgive you. As he spoke, Julie continued backing away, her eyes growing wider with every word. But it wasn't simply his words that scared her. It was the look of utter sincerity on his face. He gave a sly smile. I'd bet that you haven't even told him that you let me spend the night at your house. How do you think he'd feel about that? His words struck her with almost physical force. Richard saw her reaction, and seeing that he was right, held out his hand. Now come on, let's go someplace quiet and get a bite to eat. Julie backed away, stumbling on an exposed root and almost losing her balance. I'm not going anywhere with you. Don't be that way. Please, I'll make you happy, Jessica. Uh-oh. For a second, Julie wondered if she had heard Richard correctly, but she knew she had. You are insane, she sputtered. This time, her words stopped him. You shouldn't say that, Richard said, his voice acquiring an ugly edge. You shouldn't say things you don't mean. From the corner of her eye, Julie saw Edna re-entering the clearing again. I'm coming, she called out cheerfully. I'm coming. Richard was still staring at Julie when Edna reached them. She looked from one to the other. Is something wrong? She asked. Richard finally turned away from Julie's gaze. No, he said. Not at all. We were just trying to figure out how many homes there might actually be. I think Julie likes her privacy. Julie barely heard him answer. I've got to go, she said suddenly, starting to back away again. Richard smiled. Bye, Julie. I'll see you around. Julie turned and started out of the clearing. Singer stayed for a moment, as if making sure Richard wouldn't follow her. Then he went after her. Once out of their sight, she started to run, then began running faster and faster. She crashed through the branches along the path, her breath heavy and fast. She fell She fell once and got up quickly, ignoring the pain in her knee. Hearing noise, she glanced behind her. There was no sign of Richard behind her. She started to run again, forcing her legs to keep moving, feeling the branches sting her face as she plowed ahead. Almost there, she prayed. I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Minutes later, she was choking back tears when Mike entered the house. He held her while she cried. After telling him what had happened, she finally gathered her senses together, enough to ask why he was home so soon. Mike's face was gone white. When he spoke, his voice was a whisper. My lawyer wasn't the one who left the message. Really? Really? His lawyer wasn't the one who left the message, so who was it? It was probably Mike. It was probably, Richard. Oh my God, these stories help my soul, Jesus, with these stories. Chapter 30. Officer Jennifer Romanello was seated at the kitchen table half an hour later, her eyes on Julie as she recounted her story. It hadn't taken long for Julie to tell her everything. Though the words were important, it was the look on Julie's face that confirmed she was telling the truth. Despite the outer calm she was trying to maintain, it was clear she was pretty much a wreck. Even Jennifer got a major case of the willies. Goose pimples rose on her skin when Julie recounted how Richard had called her Jessica. I don't like the sound of that, she said as Julie was finished. With Pete Gandy's intelligence, what else was she supposed to say? Holy cow! Buy a gun and lock the doors? That guy's a nut. Mike and Julie were so shaken, they needed someone to keep her cool. Besides, it's exactly what her dad would have said. Her dad was the master at keeping people calm in tense situations. He always said it was the single most important thing an officer could do if he wanted to live long enough to draw a pension. What do we do? Mike asked. I'm not sure yet, Jennifer said, but can I go over a couple of things again, just to make certain I have them right? Julie was vacantly chewing on her nails, thinking about the one part of the story she had left out. I'd bet that you haven't even told him that you let me spend the night at... That Richard is something else. That you let me spend the night at your house. How do you think he'd feel about that? Mike probably wouldn't care, since nothing happened. It wasn't anything like Sarah had done to him, and it wasn't important to the story, right? So why couldn't she say that? Why couldn't she say it? Lost in thought, she didn't realize at first that Jennifer had just asked the question. Do you have any idea how he knew you were out there? Jennifer said. No, she said, but he was there before you were. I guess he rode with Edna. I don't know how long he was there, but he definitely arrived before I got there. I saw her car by the side of the road, and I didn't see him walking in. Jennifer turned to Mike. And you thought you had a meeting with your lawyer? She said. There was a message at the garage that I was supposed to meet him at 5. One of the other guys at the garage took the message, but when I got to the lawyer's office, He didn't seem to know anything about the meeting, so I came straight to Julie's. Mike looked almost sick and angry. Julie turned Jennifer turned to Julie again. Can I ask why you went out there in the first place? I'm a twit, Julie mumbled. Excuse me? Nothing. She took a deep breath. I hadn't seen or heard from Richard in a week, and I guess I hoped it was over. I don't think that you should do that in the future. Public places are fine, but try to avoid places where you might find yourself alone, okay? Julie snorted. I don't think you have to worry about that anymore, she said. And what do you know about Jessica? Nothing really. He said he was married to her for a few years and that it didn't work out. He didn't say any more about that. He never talked about her. And he's from Denver? That's what he told me. And again, he didn't threaten you specifically? No, but he didn't have to say anything. He's crazy. No argument there, Jennifer thought. Sounds crazy to me. Is he from Denver? I don't think he was from Denver, was he? I think that's not true. Richard told her a lie right there. And he's never suggested that I eat what he might do next? Jennifer asked. Julie shook her head. About all sorts of fantasies, she thought. Want to hear about those? Instead, she closed her eyes. I just wanted to stop, she whispered. Are you going to arrest him? Mike asked. Or bring him in for questioning? It took a moment for Jennifer to respond. I'll do what I can, she said. She didn't need to say anything else. Mike and Julie turned away. So where does that leave us? Julie asked. Look, I know you're worried. I know you're scared. And believe me, I'm on your side. So don't think I'm going to leave here and forget about this. I'm going to look into Richard Franklin's past to see what I can come up with. And I'm sure I'll be talking to him at some point. But remember, I have to work with Officer Gandhi on this. Oh, great. Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed Julie's hand. But I give you my word, she said, that we will look into this. And we are going to do everything we can to help you. Trust me, okay? It was the kind of rah-rah speech that everyone wanted to hear at a time like this. Not surprisingly, it went over with a thud. Andrea was watching the Jerry Springer show when she heard the phone ring. Reaching for it absently, she kept her eyes on the screen as she mumbled a hello. A moment later, her eyes lit up. Oh, hi, she said. I was hoping you would call. Jennifer could barely concentrate on the drive home. Instead, all she could focus on was the queasy feeling in her stomach and the screaming case of the willies that the hum of the engine couldn't seem to drown out. The whole thing scared her on a number of levels. As a police officer, she knew how dangerous stalkers could be. However, as a woman, she also found herself empathizing with Julie in a more personal way. All she had to do was close her eyes, and she was right there with Julie, feeling her helplessness. There was nothing worse. Most people lived under the illusion that they were in control of their lives. But that wasn't completely true. Yeah, you could decide what to have for breakfast and what to wear and all those little things. But as soon as you stepped out into the world, you were pretty much at the mercy of everyone else around you, and all you could do was hope that if they were having a bad day, they wouldn't decide to take it out on you. She knew it was kind of a glum she knew it was kind of a glum outlook on things. But that's exactly what she saw happening now. Julie's illusion of security had been shattered, and now she wanted Jennifer, anyone really, to put it back together. What had she said? I just want it to all stop. Yeah, she wouldn't want that. Who wouldn't want that? What she really meant was that she wanted things to go back to the way they were, back to when the world felt safe. It wouldn't be that easy. Part of the problem was that Jennifer was feeling kind of helpless herself. They had called her for help, after all, but she couldn't even talk to Richard on her own in an official capacity. And Pete Gandhi, though he had probably do what she asked, if she acted all coquettish, if she acted all coquettish, would probably screw everything up as soon as he opened his mouth. But she could investigate the guy on her own. And just as she had promised Mike and Julie, that's exactly what she intended to do. An hour after an hour after Jennifer Romanello had left, Julie and Mike were still sitting at the table. Mike was sipping on a beer, but Julie hadn't joined him. She couldn't stomach the glass of wine she had poured earlier and had dumped it in the sink. She just stared ahead vacantly, saying little, and though she looked tired, Mike knew better than to suggest that she go to bed, since sleeping was an impossible thing for them both. You hungry? He finally asked. No. You want to rent a movie? Not really. Well, I have an idea, Mike said. Let's just sit around. Let's just sit around and stare at each other for a while. And maybe we can worry a little, just to break up the monotony. I mean, we need to find something to do to pass the time. With that, Julie finally smiled. You are right, she said. She reached for his beer and took a sip. I'm getting kind of tired of it anyway. Doesn't seem to be doing me any good. So what do you want to do? Would you just hold me? Just hold me, she asked as she stood and walked over to him. Mike got up and put his arms around her. He pulled her closer, absorbing the warmth of her body. In the circle of his arms, Julie leaned her head against his chest. I'm glad you are here, she whispered. I don't know what I'd do without you. Before Mike could say anything, the phone rang. Both he and Julie tensed at the sound. They continued to hold each other as it rang a second time, then a third. Mike let go of her. Mike let go of her. Don't, Julie cried. Fear in her eyes. It rang a fourth time. Mike ignored her. He went to the living room and picked up the phone. He held it face down for a moment, then raised it slowly to his ear. Hello? He said. Oh, hi! For a second there, I wasn't sure you were in, said the voice on the other end. And Mike's face relaxed. Oh, hey, Emma, he said, breaking into a smile. How are you? I'm fine, Emma. Her voice was full of energy. But listen, I'm in Moorhead City, and you are not going to believe who I just saw. Julie moved into the living room next to Mike, and he held the phone away from his ear so she could hear as well. Who? Andrea. And you'll never believe who she was with. Who? She was with Richard. And get this, I just saw him kiss her. I have no idea what it means, Julie said. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Mike had hung up the phone and they were sitting on the couch, a single lamp shining behind them. Singer was sleeping by the front door. Did she mention anything in the shop this week? About seeing him, I mean? Julie shook her head. Nothing, not a single word. I knew she cut his hair, but that's all I knew about. Didn't she hear the things you were saying about him? She must have, but she didn't care. Either that, or she didn't believe them. Why wouldn't she believe you? Who knows? But I'll talk to her tomorrow. Maybe I can talk some sense into her. Later, Richard brought Andrea to his house, and they stood on the porch, staring towards the sky. Pressed against her, He wrapped his arms around her belly, moving his hands towards her breast. Andrea leaned her head against him and sighed. For a while there, I wasn't sure you were going to call. Richard kissed her neck, and the warmth of his lips made her shiver. The moon cast a silver shimmer on the trees. It's so beautiful out here, she said. So quiet. Shh, don't say anything. Just listen. He didn't want to hear her voice because it reminded him that she wasn't Julie. He was with another woman, a woman who meant nothing to him, but her body was soft and warm, and she desired him. And the moon? Shh, shh, he said again. An hour later, when they were in bed together, Andrea moaned and dug her fingers into his back. But Richard had told her, What? But Richard had told her not to make any other sounds, no whispers, no talking. He had insisted on total darkness in the room as well. He moved above her, feeling her breath on his skin. Julie, he wanted to whisper, you can't keep running from me. Don't you see what we have? Don't you crave what? Don't you crave the completion that our union will bring? But then he remembered their meeting in the woods. The look of horror in her eyes. He saw her revulsion, heard her words of rejection. He felt her hatred. The memory wounded him. An assault on his senses. An assault on his senses. Julie, he wanted to whisper, you were cruel to me today. You ignored my profession of love. You treated me as if I meant nothing. Oh, he heard in the darkness. Not so hard. You are hurting me. Oh. The sound brought him back. Shh, he whispered, but he didn't relax his hands. In the dim light from the window, he could just make out a shadow of fear in Andrea's eyes. He felt a surge of desire. That's where we're going to end this reading for tonight, guys. Yes, that's where we are going to end the reading for tonight. Andrea is something else. I tell you, she is something else. We are going to continue reading this book. We'll be reading chapter 32 tomorrow morning. We'll be reading chapter 32. I want to hear what else is happening between Julie and this Richard. This Richard is something else, I tell you. He is now there. Hey, Tag, what's up? He's now there with Andrea while he's thinking about Julie. And he seems so sinister. It makes me afraid. I'm not even in part of the story, and I am afraid. I'm afraid for Julie. I'm afraid for Mike. I'm just afraid of this guy. He seems like a serial killer. He didn't say what happened to his first wife, Jennifer. And I'm wondering if he had harmed her. And I don't think we read that he was from Denver. I think he was from someplace else. But it might come up again. I don't remember, and I don't want to remember either. But this Richard is really something else. And that is where we're going to end the reading for today. When we come back tomorrow, we will continue reading from chapter 31. And it will help us figure out what happened. All right. Tag, what's going on? How are you doing? Guys, here is my friend, Tag Warmer. It's 8 o'clock for me in the night, so it's 8 o'clock in the morning for him. Where he is at. Delia! What's up? How you doing? Odysseus text me now. How you doing, Delia? What's going on with you, my love? Did I say, I enjoyed it? Thank you, my darling. Thank you, my darling. I know you're always there in the background somewhere. But Delia, at what time of night now? Why you not asleep? Why you not asleep? Mr. Guys, Delia sent me one birthday One birthday greeting where they me say, Lord of His mercy. Me not even go take it off of the phone. It I go stay upon the phone. Oh my gosh. Yesterday you went to sleep earlier. Sometimes I wonder, how comes them other people I get live movie stream on YouTube? I always I wonder how them get to do it. Me no know. Unless them pay for something, me no know. Lord God. Who is I send me sitting under that bloodshed of St. Catherine? Me no know no bloodshed in it, no. Lord have mercy. OMG. It is what it is. But anyway, we are going to continue. We are going to continue reading tomorrow. There's always a way. Yes, yes, Sister Delia. I see that. I see that. I see that. Yeah, so we have come to the end of the reading for today. Tomorrow we will continue reading this book. Join me again tomorrow morning when we will continue the reading of the Bible. And that is where we are going to be ending the live for tonight. When we come back tomorrow, guys, we will chat some more. That's it for tonight, my friends. Until next time, this is Chirp from Traversants, where your journey matters. I hope you all have yourselves a great night. Have a good night, everybody. See you all later.